So in this video I'm going to teach you how to use some click detectors, which is an object that lets the player click on something and then some function is ran. So I'll give a couple of examples right now. So I got this little lamp right here. If I click on the lamp, you can see when I hover my mouse over it changes to a different icon. That's how you usually know if someone's using a click detector. But you see if I click on it, you can see a light turns on. It's pretty cool. I did something similar to the fire pit right here too. If I click it, the fire turns on, and it turns off if I click it again. And I also have the shower. If I go in here, if I click, water turns off. If I click again, water turns on. And lastly, I have this little coffee mug where if I click on it, it gives me a coffee in my hand. So I'll be teaching you how to make each one of these things right here. Okay, so let's start off with the easy one, which will be the lamp first. So first thing I'm going to do is insert a click detector object. Like so. And now if we go to try to test this game with just the click detector, you can see that the mouse changes the icon. So that's how you know if the click detector is actually working. But if I click, nothing happens because we need to write some code for it. So let's do that. So I'm going to insert a script into here. It doesn't really matter where the script is. It can be inside the click detector, it can be in the model, it can be in workspace. It doesn't really matter. It's just wherever you think is best. For me, I think it's best to put it inside the lamp model itself. Then I'm going to make some variables. So I'll make a variable for the lamp. I'm just going to call it model. You can name your variable names whatever you want. And I'll make another variable for the click detector. So let's call it click detector. Model.clickDetector. Now we want to run a function where every time this click detector activates. So clickDetector.mouseClick. Now connect this to a function. So now with just this code, we're to run the game. So I put a print in there to kind of test. If I were to run it, you can see it prints I've been collected. So we got kind of the hard part done. Now all we need to do is turn the light on. So see the light is inside the bulb. So if you have a different name for this, then use that name. In this case it's called bulb. So I'm going to type in model, which is the script.parent dot bulb, and then whatever the light object is called. So it's called point light for me. Point light. And then to turn on and off, you just have to enable and disable this property right here. So we just need to do that with a script. So let's do .enable and let's just set it to true to turn it on. So you can see it turns on now, but it doesn't turn off if we click again, so we need to fix that. So a couple ways we can do this. We can make an if statement. So I can do, so if this is enabled, then turn it off, else. So how this works is just, this checks if it's true. So the first if statement checks if it's true. If it is true, it sets it to false, else, meaning if it's not true, then it'll set it to true. So now we're to run this. See it turns on, and then click in and it turns off. Works good. So there's a couple issues with this method. It's a little bit hard to read because of how many words there are. So there's two ways to fix that. We can either use a variable. So instead of writing all this down, we can just make a variable for the light itself. So model.bulb.pointLight. And then we can just use the variable instead of typing all this out. Like so. So now it looks a lot better now, and then we're gonna test it. You can see it still works. Another way to make this a bit shorter is to actually use the not operator. So in one of my previous videos, when I explained the logical operators, I said that the not operator reverses a Boolean value. So for example, if I were to print true right here, see it prints true. But if I put not true, then it prints false, and then the opposite is also true. If I do not false, it's true. So we can use that logic to help make this code shorter by doing point light .enabled not, and then because the enable property is a Boolean value, we can just do that. So now when this is true, it'll set it to false, and when it's false, it'll set it to true. Then we're to test this. You can see it works perfectly fine. It's a bit complicated to understand, so if you don't understand it, you can use the previous method if you want. I'll just stick with this method though. So that's the lamp. So we're going to do the same thing, similar process with the fire pit. So let's go to fire pit, and again, same process. I'm just going to insert a click detector and then a script. Again, it doesn't matter where the script is. Then I'm going to make some variables just to make the code clean. You don't have to use variables either, but I like using variables. Let's make a variable for the model and a variable for the click detector. Like so. And then you see the light and fire is both inside of this light object right here. So let's go ahead and connect this to another function. And then we just need to disable the fire and the light. So we do model.light, fire equals false. And then we do the same thing for the other one. So again, so this is the model. And you go from top to down, so model, light, and then so fire we do point light now. And we'll go ahead and test it. So you can see it turns off, but we also want to be able to turn it back on again. So same logic of the last one, we can use an if statement, or you can use that trick that I kind of told you about. I'll use an if statement for this one. Actually, let me make some variables to kind of make this shorter. Make one for fire, and then one for the actual light. If fire is enabled, then disable it. Else, else if it is disabled, then enable it. And we'll go ahead and write the light code here too. Now we're going to test it. See, it turns off and it turns back on. So very similar to the lamp part. Now for the shower part, again, also very similar. So same process, insert a click detector, except we don't want to insert the click detector inside of this model, because then if you were to click on, just the glass, then it would run the code. And I'll just show you. So I insert a click detector to the shower model itself, and you can see when I hover my mouse over the shower, the mouse changes. If you want that, then that's fine, but for me, I want it to where you would have to click on this little button right there and behind the water. So instead of the shower model, I'm just going to insert a click detector inside of this little button right here. So let's put it there. And now it will only change the icon for that model. So you can see how our mouse over it doesn't change, but if I were to go inside, you can see it changes for that little button right there. So same process, go and make a script. Let's go to the button, make some variables. It's very similar process, and then make another function. And then for this one, we just want to turn on and off this particle emitter, which I think is in this object right here. Yep. So it's in the splash part. So I'm just going to make a variable for splash, or I mean for the particle emitter. So it's inside of this model, button, dot, and we go down one, splash, and then the particle emitter. And let's turn this to false and test it. So now for it to go in here, see water turns off. Now we just need to do it where it turns back on. I'm going to use the trick that I showed you on the first one. But if you're not comfortable with that, you can just use the if statement. It's a very similar method like the fire pit. So now we're going to test it. See how it turns off and it turns back on when you turn on the shower. Very cool. And then last example would be the coffee, where if you click on the coffee, it gives you the coffee. This is going to be a bit of a harder one, but hopefully you'll be able to understand it. So let's go to the coffee right here. And again, same process. We'll just insert a click detector and a script. So again, the logic we're going for here is that we click on the coffee and it clones it and then puts it in the player's inventory. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a duplicate of this. I'm going to create a tool, which is an object that lets the player hold things. Put that in there and then ungroup it. And then just delete the script and click detector. Make sure one of the parts is named handle, or else this won't work. And also make sure that if your coffee is multiple parts like mine is, make sure it is also welded. And what that means is, so we'll go and unanchor it. So right now if I were to test this, you can see that it drops and it retains its shape, as it drops. But if your coffee isn't welded, so I'm gonna delete my welds here and then drop it, you can see it kind of explodes and breaks apart. So make sure you weld it. And it's really easy to weld. All you have to do is insert a weld based on how many parts are. So I have 2 other parts, so I insert 2. And then part 0 is the handle, and then part 1 is every other part. Like so. If I test this again, if you did it right and you were to run it and drop it, it should stick together like this without it breaking apart. And again, make sure you have one part named handle. So now that I have this tool, I'm going to put it in replicated storage. And I'm just going to call this coffee. Go into the script here, and I'm going to do the same process as the other examples. Make my variables first, just for readability. So model, let's go script.parent, and then click detector is inside of the model. Insert, connect this to a function. Just click. And then we just want to clone the tool that we just made. So I'm going to make a variable, local tool is equal to, and the tool is inside of the replicated storage is where I put it. So game.replicated storage, whatever the tool name is, and then clone. And then we need to parent this tool right here. So for the mouse click event, it actually gives you a player parameter for free, so that's always cool. And then we can just use that to parent. So that parent is equal to player.backpack. And now if we're to test it, you can see that I got my coffee now. And that's the end of the video, guys. So this is the first episode of my game development tutorial series, where I'll be creating tutorials on how to make very specific game features or just games itself. If you have any ideas or any suggestions you want me to make, feel free to comment down below, and you can always join my Discord if you have any questions or just want to talk to me and hang out. If you liked the video, feel free to give it a like and subscribe.